Good morning, or depending when you're watching this, good afternoon, good evening, or good night. My name's Ross, and I was always told I had a voice radio, so today we are looking at a brand new Banette card, which is going to be coming out in the upcoming Celestial Storm expansion of the Pokemon trading card game, coming out in the first Friday in August. This has been revealed and translated by the lovely RappelmannTCG, who has very clearly become the translator of choice for PTCGRadio. Plus, you know, he's a lovely man. So, it's only been about 5 minutes since we revealed Banette GX, which was a pretty interesting card which I thought could see a fair amount of play. Could Banette work with it? And do remember the rule. Banette and Banette GX are different names. Therefore, you can have 4 Banette and 4 Banette GX in your deck, although you can only have 4 Shuppet in your deck, from which they will both evolve. So starting off with the basics, 90 HP is very low, but as I always say, maybe we'll get a levelable reprint one day, although just to be clear, I have no information about a potential levelable reprint, and it is probably just wishful thinking on my part. Otherwise, 90 HP is very, very low. Weakness to darkness would be a pain with Zoroark, but to be honest, you got 90 HP, Zoroark's going to one-hit KO you anyway. What we do like is a resistance to fighting, so Buzzwole can, to put it bluntly, do one. Although, to be fair, you've still only got 90 HP. Although Jet Punch just isn't getting a one-hit KO. And you've got a retreat cost of 1, which post-rotation is going to be absolutely huge, because it means that Escape Board will be able to give you free retreat, even if you are asleep or paralyzed. Yay! Etc. So the basics here are looking alright, other than the fairly pitiful HP. And I'm going to be honest, I am not a fan of the artwork on this particular card. My apologies. So what does it actually do? That is always the most important thing. The ability, once during your turn, when you play this card from your hand to evolve a Pokemon, you may put a basic Pokemon from your opponent's discard pile onto their bench. This can actually be super annoying. We did have a Pokemon that was really popular that had a similar ability to this back in the day. It was actually Honchkrow. Specifically, the Honchkrow from Supreme Victors, although Honchkrow from Supreme Victors could do this once per turn, whereas unfortunately this is just when you evolve into Banette, which is not quite as good. Now, you could potentially just reuse this ability over and over again with Devolution Spray. Oh no, wait! That is rotating on September the 1st. So you have a brief period of time with this, but that really is it. Little bit of a pain, can't do everything. This is a great ability. Back in the day, Honchkrow was actually used as a counter to Gyarados, because Gyarados did more damage based on the amount of Magikarp in their discard pile. So you would use Honchkrow to get Magikarp out of the discard and reduce the damage output here. But this is one of those Pokemon where it's really difficult to go through every use for this ability. For instance, if I'm playing an Empoleon deck, what I can do is take one of my opponent's basics out of their discard and put it on their bench, allowing me to do an extra 20 damage with Empoleon, because Empoleon does 20 damage for each Pokemon on each player's bench. That's quite fun. Of course, what you could do here, what often happens in this game at the moment, players will leave one space on their bench just in case they want to use a Tapu Lele to use a Wonder Tag ability and go and search for a supporter. Well, great news, you can fill that space so that your opponent doesn't have access to it. Or maybe, and again this is pre-rotation, maybe you get rid of a Parallel City, open up 2 bench spots for your opponent, use this ability to pop a rubbish Pokemon on their bench, and then use a Sudowoodo to put them down to 4 bench spots remaining, and then they don't have any more options for stuff to put on their bench. There are so many things you can do with this ability. The other thing which I really like is just grab something like a 60 HP Zorua and pop it straight onto their bench, and this whole 60 HP thing will become clear in a moment. You can just put a Pokemon on the bench ready to KO. So let's say, for argument's sake, you're playing against a Garbodor deck which happens to tech in Drampa GX, which happens quite a lot, and you're playing Lycanroc. Well, your opponent is going to sit there and go, there is no way I'm benching Drampa. Lycanroc's going to get an easy 2 prizes. I ain't that dumb. So you discard it. So the Lycanroc player can use Banette to grab Tramper out the discard, pop it on the bench, and then Lycanroc can pull it active with Bloodthirsty Eyes and KO it for an easy 2 prizes. I'm not saying that every Lycanroc deck is going to tech in a 1-1 or 2-2 Banette line. No. What I am saying is that this is an example of the kind of thing you can do. And let's be super clear about this. This is a really useful ability. Blocking up their bench, or stopping them doing extra damage, or allowing yourself to do extra damage, or whatever. It is really, really useful. Now, one thing I'm expecting some of you are probably thinking straight off the bat, hang on a second, Wassy. Isn't this just Target Whistle? Well, yes, obviously it is Target Whistle. Target Whistle saw a little bit of play. Why did Target Whistle not see more play? Super simple. Target Whistle was an item card, so it was hard to draw into it at the right time. Whereas Banette being a Pokemon means you can use something like Ultra Ball to search it out. Or you could use something like a Level Ball in Expanded or whatever. It makes it a far more reliable option. Okay, so we like the ability. I think I've made that quite clear. The attack, 1 Psychic, 1 Colorless. Count the number of Pokemon your opponent has in play. Put that many damage counters on your opponent's Pokemon in any way that you like. Think of it like Espeon GX's GX attack, except instead of a standard 10 damage counters, it will only do as many as your opponent has Pokemon in play. And as a quick side note, it is damage counters, not damage, so stuff like Mr. Mime that would usually protect the bench will not protect the bench, although Machoke will, because Machoke does specifically protect against damage counters. And the reason this is particularly useful is if your opponent has 5 Pokemon in play, then you can use Banette's ability to put a 6th Pokemon in play and then drop 6 damage counters. And we talked yesterday about Tornadus GX. And one of the things I said about Tornadus GX is, if only it did 60 damage of its first attack, so we could KO something like a 60 HP Zorua. Well, as long as your opponent's got 5 Pokemon on their bench, and remember you can help with this, then you can drop 6 damage counters. So against a Zoroark deck here, you could just grab a Pokemon off the bench, make sure they've got 6 Pokemon on the bench, and then drop 6 damage counters to KO a Zorua. And alright, Banette's just going to go down straight away then, it's going to be an easy KO on Banette, but that's fine, because you've taken one of your opponent's Pokemon down with you. Now, it doesn't have to just be a one-hit KO on something like a Zorua. You can spread a bit of damage around to bring your opponent's Pokemon into range of your attacks. Or you could just finish off some Pokemon that have retreated to the bench and still got just a few HP remaining. There are options here, ladies and gentlemen. Obviously, the thing that comes to mind first of all for me is just grab a 60 HP Pokemon from the discard and then KO it straight away. But the fact of the matter is, you can drop the last 3 damage counters on a Tapu Lele to get the KO, and then put 3 damage counters somewhere else. If you're against a Gyarados deck that's using Magikarp, great news. If your opponent's got a full bench, you can KO 2 Magikarp here. And remember, if your opponent isn't filling up their bench, you can use your ability to help. And I know everyone's going to be using the Magikarp with Submerge from Crimson Invasion, but that prevents damage, not damage counters, which means you will be able to KO them. This is incredibly useful. I love the synergy here between the ability and the attack. But I think the attack has a lot of potential, and I think the ability has a lot of potential, and I don't think you just have to use them together. I think they could actually work quite nicely individually. Now, obviously, I'd much prefer this for a single energy, but we've got a bunch of options. In Expanded, we've got Dimension Valley, which will make it a single energy. If you're behind on prizes, Counter Energy will work quite nicely here, and you've always got stuff like Lunala Prism Star to accelerate that Psychic Energy, or indeed Malamar. If this was a basic Pokemon, oh my goodness, it would be broken, which is why it's a Stage 1. Maybe the fact that it's a Stage 1 means it takes a bit too much space in your deck and a bit too much space on your bench and is a bit too awkward. That is a possibility. Maybe the fact that it's for 2 energy makes it a little bit awkward. But I do think there's a lot of potential here. This ability can wreck, as we've seen with Honchkrow, and an attack like this can be really good, as we've seen with Espeon. So I'm giving this between 3 and 4 Wassies. We don't give half Wassies. That would be barbaric. I ain't going to sit here and tell you this is the best card ever, but I'm definitely going to sit here and say I expect some people to chuck it into their decks as a tech, and I expect some of those people to really take advantage and do very well with it in their deck. So I think it's a good card, and I think it deserves testing. But if you agree with me, or if you disagree, or if you just want to say, hey, new baby Daisy, great news, there's a comment section. Go nuts, be nice. Make sure you like this video, subscribe to this channel, follow me on Twitter at the Wassie, and Twitch for some live action at twitch.tv/PTCGRadio. If you want to support the channel, get some bonus podcasts and all that, head on over to patreon.com/PTCGRadio, where you can do just that. But by far the most important thing, as always, is to look after yourselves. Until next time, thank you very much for watching. My name's Ross, and you've been watching PTCG Radio.